The message came at 10:17 p.m., a sharp vibration on a phone that rarely received anything except club orders and threats from rival gangs, but this one was different. It was from an unknown number, a child's number. "Our house is on fire. Help us." The enforcer, Valen Cross, stared at the screen. He frowned at first, thinking it was a mistake, a prank, a wrong number. Then another text arrived, shorter, more desperate. "Please. My baby sister is crying. Mama won't wake up." Valen's breath caught in his throat. He had seen violence, he had caused violence. But he had never seen this, a child begging a stranger because she had no one else left. He typed only 4 words. "Where are you? Stay low." No hesitation, no questions, no second thoughts. His club brothers froze as he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out the door. "Valen, where the hell are you going?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because something in that child's words, that raw desperation, hit a part of him he thought had died 22 years ago. As his bike roared through the streets, another message appeared. "I can see flames under the door. June is scared." Valen twisted the throttle harder. His pulse hammered. Streetlights blurred past. By the time he reached the address, he already knew tonight he wasn't arriving as the Iron Serpent's enforcer. He was arriving as the only hope those 2 little girls had left. And what he found inside that burning house would change everything. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, support this channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Valen Cross had spent the last 15 years building a reputation that made grown men cross the street when they saw him coming. He was the Iron Serpent's enforcer, the one they called when words stopped working and fists needed to start talking. In the dimly lit back room of Rusty's bar, he sat with 4 of his brothers, cards spread across the scarred wooden table. Smoke hung thick in the air, mixing with the smell of spilled whiskey and motor oil that seemed permanently embedded in the walls. This was his world, brutal, simple, predictable. "Your bet, Cross," Jax muttered, tossing chips into the center pile. Valen's eyes never left his cards. 3 queens. Not bad. He reached for his beer, fingers wrapped around the cold glass. That's when his phone buzzed. The sound shouldn't have meant anything. In 15 years of riding with the Serpents, he'd learned to ignore distractions. Focus kept you alive. Hesitation got you killed. But something about that vibration felt different. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. "Our house is on fire. Help us." His first thought, wrong number, had to be. Then the second message came through. "Please. My baby sister is crying. Mama won't wake up." The card slipped from his hand. The beer suddenly felt too heavy. Around him, his brother's laughter faded to white noise. Because somewhere in those words, in that desperate plea from a child who had no one else to turn to, Valen heard something he hadn't heard in 22 years. He heard Corey. "Valen?" Jax's voice sounded distant. "You good?" He wasn't good. For the first time since he was 16 years old, Valen Cross felt his hands shake. This was it. The call he'd promised to answer, the one he'd been running from for over 2 decades. His thumbs moved across the screen, typing 4 words that broke every rule he'd lived by. "Where are you? Stay low." He was on his feet before his brain caught up with his body. Leather jacket, keys, helmet. His brothers stared as he moved toward the door with mechanical precision. "Valen, where the hell are you going?" He didn't answer, didn't look back. Because if he stopped to explain, if he let himself think about what he was doing, he might realize how insane this was, racing into the night for a stranger's child, based on nothing but a text message and a promise made to a dying 8-year-old boy. The night air hit him like a slap as he burst through the door. His Harley sat under the single flickering streetlight, chrome catching fragments of yellow glow. He'd bought this bike 13 years ago with money from his first major enforcement job. It was the only thing in his life he'd ever loved, ever trusted. Tonight, it needed to be faster than it had ever been before. He kicked the engine to life. The roar echoed off brick walls, drowning out the questions being shouted from the doorway behind him. Valen twisted the throttle. and the bike lurched forward, carrying him away from everything he knew and towards something he couldn't name. His phone buzzed again, mounted on the handlebars. I can see flames under the door. June is scared. Valen's jaw tightened. The speedometer climbed 40, 50, 60. Traffic laws didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting to that address before it was too late. Before he failed another child the way he'd failed Corey. The GPS on Valen's phone displayed the address in cold, clinical blue, 2847 Ashford Street. Estimated arrival, 14 minutes. 14 minutes. Valen cut across 2 lanes of traffic, ignoring the angry horn blast from a sedan. 14 minutes while flames consumed oxygen and melted plastic and turned a home into a crematorium. 14 minutes while a little girl, what was her name? She hadn't said, huddled somewhere in that inferno with her baby sister. His phone buzzed. Without slowing, he glanced down. The smoke hurts. 3 words. Simple. Devastating. Valen's chest constricted. He knew what came next. He'd seen it before, lived through it once already. First came the smoke. Then came the drowsiness, the confusion, the overwhelming urge to just close your eyes and sleep. No. He typed one-handed, the bike wobbling slightly as he thumbed out a response. Stay awake. Talk to me. What's your name? 10 seconds felt like an hour. The phone remained dark. Valen ran a red light, barely missing a pickup truck. A motorcycle cop would have had a field day with his current speed. He was pushing 75 inches, a 35 zone, but no flashing lights appeared in his mirrors. The phone lit up. Hollis, I'm 7. June is 2. Good, Hollis. You're doing great. Where exactly are you? My bedroom closet. Mama's in the living room. She won't answer me. Valen's mind raced, calculating. If the mother was unconscious in the living room and the fire was visible under the bedroom door, that meant the blaze was between them. The house was already divided. Whatever structure he found when he arrived, it wouldn't be stable. Are you near a window? Yes, but it doesn't open. Daddy painted it shut. Painted shut. Jesus. Valen took a corner so hard his knee nearly scraped asphalt. 8 minutes to destination now. Hollis, listen to me carefully. Put something over your mouth. A shirt, a blanket, anything. Stay low to the ground. Can you do that? Okay. The downtown buildings began to thin, replaced by residential neighborhoods, houses with chain-link fences and cars parked in driveways. Normal people living normal lives, tucked safe in their beds while somewhere ahead, 2 children were running out of breathable air. His phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a text, it was a call. From Jax. Valen declined it. Another buzz, another call, this time from Reaper, the club president. He declined that one too. They'd want explanations. They'd want to know why their enforcer had abandoned a poker game to chase after some random emergency. They'd tell him it wasn't his problem, wasn't his responsibility, wasn't worth the risk. And they'd be right. Except they'd never met Corey, never made a promise to an 8-year-old boy whose last words were soaked in smoke and guilt, never spent 22 years building walls around their heart because they were too afraid to feel that kind of failure again. The GPS showed 6 minutes. Another text appeared, and this time, Valen's blood turned to ice. The smoke hurts. I'm really tired. I'm really tired. Those were Corey's words, exact words. Spoken in a hospital bed while machines beeped and their mother sobbed and Valen stood frozen. 16 years old and completely useless. Not again. Not this time. Valen typed frantically, one thumb flying across the screen while the other hand kept the bike steady. No. Hollis, you need to stay awake. I'm almost there. Tell me about June. What color is her blanket? 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then, pink. Relief flooded through him. That's good. Does June like stuffed animals? What's her favorite? A bunny. It's gray. Perfect. When I get there, we're going to take that bunny with us. And June, and you. We're all getting out together. But you have to stay awake. Can you do that for me? I'll try. Valen's phone showed 3 minutes to destination. The houses around him were getting shabbier now, peeling paint, sagging porches, yards filled with dead grass and abandoned toys. The kind of neighborhood where domestic violence calls were routine and sirens were just background noise. The kind of neighborhood where a man could set his house on fire and disappear into the night. 2 minutes. Ahead, Valen saw it, an orange glow painting the night sky. Thick black smoke rising in a column, visible even from blocks away. His stomach dropped. 1 minute. He rounded the final corner onto Ashford Street, and his worst fears materialized in front of him. Number 2847 was fully engulfed. Flames licked out of windows. The front door was a rectangle of pure orange heat. A crowd of neighbors stood in a loose semicircle on the street, watching with the helpless fascination of people who knew they couldn't do anything but felt guilty for not trying. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Emergency services were coming, but Valen had spent enough time around fire to know what those sirens meant. They were minutes away, maybe 5, maybe 3. Hollis and June didn't have 3 minutes. Valen killed the engine and dismounted in one smooth motion. His phone buzzed one final time. "I can't breathe anymore." He stared at those 4 words, and something inside him, something that had been frozen solid for 22 years, finally cracked open. Valen Cross pulled off his helmet, dropped it on the ground, and ran straight toward the burning house. 22 years earlier, 16-year-old Valen Cross had 3 loves in his life: his mother, his little brother, and his motorcycle. On the night of April 14th, the motorcycle won. "Valen, I need you home tonight," his mother, Rita, had said that afternoon. She was stirring something on the stove in their cramped apartment kitchen, her face drawn with the exhaustion of a woman working 2 jobs. "Your father's coming by to pick up his stuff. I don't want Corey here when that happens." "Mom, I've got the race." "Valen." Rita's voice had that edge it got when she wasn't negotiating. "Your brother needs you." But the race was the biggest one all season. Money on the line, reputation, respect. At 16, those things felt more important than babysitting an 8-year-old, even if that 8-year-old was Corey, who worshipped Valen like he hung the moon. "I'll be back by 10, Valen had lied. "Dad won't even be there yet." He'd kissed his mother's cheek, ruffled Corey's hair, and left before guilt could change his mind. The race had been perfect. Valen won by 2 bike lengths, pocketing $300 and enough street cred to last him months. He and his buddies celebrated at an all-night diner, trading stories and reliving every turn, every near miss, every beautiful second of that race. His phone rang 4 times, all from his mother. He ignored every call. Race adrenaline, he'd told himself. He'd call her back when he calmed down. By the time Valen finally checked his messages at 11:47 p.m., there were 14 missed calls and a voicemail that made his blood freeze. "Valen, there's a fire in the building. I can't find Corey. Please call me back." He'd broken every traffic law getting home. Sirens screamed from multiple directions. Fire trucks blocked the street. His apartment building was an inferno, flames shooting from windows, smoke so thick it turned the streetlights into dim orange halos. Valen had run toward the building, but firefighters held him back. "You can't go in there, son. My brother's in there. We've got crews inside." Corey. They'd found him 20 minutes later. A firefighter carried the small, unconscious body out and rushed him straight into an ambulance. Valen followed in someone's car, though later he couldn't remember whose. Everything was fragmented, dreamlike, impossible. At the hospital, Corey had briefly regained consciousness. His eyes found Valen's, and despite the oxygen mask, despite the machines and the controlled chaos of the ER, Corey had smiled. That smile broke Valen's heart. "Hey, buddy," Valen had whispered, taking his little brother's hand. "You're gonna be okay." Corey's eyes said something different. They said goodbye. "Promise me something, Val." Corey's voice was barely audible through the mask. Each word took visible effort. Anything, Corey. "Promise me." Corey's breathing hitched. "Promise me you'll answer next time someone needs you. Don't be late." Tears streamed down Valen's face. I promise. I swear to God. I promise. Corey squeezed his hand once. Then his eyes closed, and despite everything the doctors did, they never opened again. The fire had started in a neighboring apartment. A domestic dispute turned violent. Someone had kicked over a space heater during a fight. The flames spread fast, fueled by old carpeting and neglected maintenance. Everyone got out except for one old man in 4B and an 8-year-old boy in 3F who'd been waiting for his big brother to come home and protect him. At the funeral, Valen's mother wouldn't look at him, couldn't look at him. The guilt in his eyes probably reflected the accusation in hers too perfectly. If you'd been there, she finally said, 3 days after they buried Corey, he would have gotten out. Mom, don't. Her voice was flat, dead. Just don't, Valen. She'd been right, of course. If he'd been home instead of racing, Corey would have followed him out, would have lived, would have grown up and gotten his own motorcycle and maybe forgiven his stupid brother for being young and selfish and thoughtless. Instead, Corey got a small plot in Memorial Gardens and a headstone that read, Beloved Son and Brother. Valen left home 2 weeks after the funeral. At 17, he had nothing but a backpack, a motorcycle, and a promise he never intended to keep, because keeping it meant caring, and caring meant feeling, and feeling meant remembering that he'd killed his brother by answering a race instead of a call. The Iron Serpents Motorcycle Club found Valen 3 months after Corey died. Or maybe Valen found them. It was hard to say who did the hunting. He'd been drifting, working construction jobs, sleeping in cheap motels, riding aimlessly through states whose names he barely registered. He wasn't living so much as existing, filling the hours between waking and sleeping with enough noise and motion that he couldn't hear his thoughts. The Serpents spotted him at a gas station outside Denver. 5 of them, leather-clad and dangerous, watching this skinny 7-year-old kid fill up his bike like he had nowhere to go and all the time in the world to get there. Nice ride, one of them had said. He was older, maybe 40, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. Later, Valen would know him as Reaper, the club president. Thanks. You ride alone? Valen had looked at him then, really looked, and seen something he recognized, the same emptiness that lived behind his own eyes. Yeah. How old are you, kid? Old enough. Reaper had laughed, not mockery, but understanding. We've got a clubhouse 20 miles north, free beer, hot food, and nobody asks questions you don't want to answer. Interested? Valen should have said no, should have gotten on his bike and ridden in the opposite direction. But the thing about drowning is that you stop caring whether the hand pulling you up belongs to a lifeguard or a shark. Sure, he'd said. That was 15 years ago. The Iron Serpents weren't the kind of motorcycle club that wore patches and rode in charity runs. They were the other kind, the kind that made money through means that didn't appear on tax returns. Protection, mostly. The occasional smuggling run, debt collection. Nothing murderous, but plenty violent. Valen fit right in. He discovered he was good at violence. Not the wild, emotional kind. He'd locked those emotions away in Corey's grave, but the cold, calculated kind. The kind that made people pay their debts on time and think twice before crossing the Serpent's territory. By 25, he was the club's enforcer. By 30, his reputation preceded him. Valen Cross didn't need to throw punches anymore. He just needed to show up and make clear-eyed promises about consequences. People believed him. Because they should. He lived by 3 rules. Ride alone. Trust no one. Never look back. Those rules kept him safe, kept him functional, kept him from thinking about smoke-filled hospitals and promises made to dying children. He dated sometimes women who understood that casual meant exactly that and nothing more. He drank sometimes, but never enough to lose control. He fought sometimes, but only when necessary and always with precision. What he never did was care. Caring got you killed. Caring got you hurt. Caring meant being 16 years old and standing next to a hospital bed, watching your little brother die because you chose a race over a phone call. For 22 years, Valen Cross maintained his rules with religious discipline. Until 10:17 p.m. on a Thursday night, when a text from an unknown number punched through every wall he'd built and reminded him that some promises can't be buried, no matter how deep you dig. Valen's bike screamed through the residential streets. 3 minutes to destination. The orange glow was visible now, a cancer spreading across the night sky. His phone buzzed. The smoke hurts. I'm really tired. His heart, that organ he'd thought long dead, hammered against his ribs. Those words, I'm really tired, they were Corey's words. The last thing his brother had said before the machine started screaming. Not again. Never again. Valen typed one-handed, the bike wobbling as he divided his attention. No, Hollis, you need to stay awake. I'm almost there. Tell me about June. What color is her blanket? The seconds stretched like taffy. 5, 10, 15. Then, pink. Relief nearly made him swerve. She was still conscious, still fighting. That's good. Does June like stuffed animals? What's her favorite? A bunny. It's gray. Perfect. When I get there, we're going to take that bunny with us. And June, and you. We're all getting out together. But you have to stay awake. Can you do that for me? I'll try. 2 minutes now. Valen could see individual houses, their porch lights glowing like weak stars. Most were dark, residents either asleep or pretending not to notice the emergency unfolding down the street. Hollis, I need you to do something for me. Count to 100. Out loud. Can you do that? Why? Because it will keep you awake, and I need you awake when I get there. Start counting. Okay. 1, 2, 3. She was texting him the numbers, each one a confirmation that she was still conscious, still there, still savable. 15, 16, 17. Valen twisted the throttle harder. The speedometer kissed 80. Houses blurred past. A dog barked from behind a fence. 28, 29, 30. 1 minute. The smoke was a wall now, thick and black, mushrooming into the sky. He could smell it even from here, that acrid, chemical stench of modern houses burning, plastic and synthetic materials releasing toxic gases. 41. 42. I'm dizzy. Keep counting, Hollis. You're doing great. Keep going. 43. 44. 45. 30 seconds. Valen could see the crowd now, silhouettes backlit by flames, could see the house, fully engulfed, windows exploding outward from the heat. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, but they weren't here yet, weren't close enough. 52. 53. I dropped my phone. Found it. 5-4. Almost there, Hollis. Keep your face low. Remember the air is better near the floor. 55. 56. June is crying. Valen rounded the final corner. 2847 Ashford Street materialized through the smoke like something from a nightmare. The entire structure was burning. The roof showed visible holes. The front door had become a rectangular portal to hell itself. He killed the engine and dismounted, his phone in his hand. I'm outside. Last question. Hollis, what side of the house is your bedroom on? Left side. The window has pink curtains. Stay in that closet. I'm coming to get you. He shoved the phone in his pocket and ran toward the inferno. The heat hit him at 30 feet, a solid wall that made his exposed skin prickle. At 20 feet, it became painful. At 10 feet, it felt like standing too close to a bonfire, except this bonfire had once been someone's home. A neighbor grabbed his arm. You can't go in there. Valen shook him off without breaking stride. The fire department's on the way. They were. Valen could hear the sirens getting closer. Maybe 2 minutes away. Maybe 3. Hollis and June didn't have 3 minutes. He moved around the left side of the house, searching for those pink curtains. The first window he found exploded outward, showering him with glass. He ducked, protecting his face with his arm. The second window was intact, but the curtains inside were orange with flame. Wrong room. The third window. Pink curtains. Still pink, not yet consumed. The glass was blackened with smoke but intact. Valen picked up a landscaping rock from the dying flower bed, wrapped his jacket around his fist, and smashed through the window. The heat that poured out of that broken window hit Valen like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. Black smoke billowed out, thick enough to cut with a knife. For a moment, just a moment, he hesitated. This was insane. The house was a death trap. The ceiling could collapse any second. The floor might be compromised. Smoke inhalation would drop him before he made it 10 feet inside. This was how people died. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. He didn't need to check it to know what it said. He'd lived this moment before standing outside while a child burned inside, and that time he'd been too late. Valen wrapped his jacket tighter around his hand, cleared away the remaining glass shards, and climbed through the window. The heat inside was unbearable. It was like being shoved into an oven set to maximum, the air itself searing his throat with each breath. The smoke was worse, thick and oily, coating his mouth and nose, filling his lungs with poison. Visibility was maybe 3 feet, and that was being generous. He dropped to his hands and knees immediately. The air was marginally better down here, though better was relative when you were breathing in a burning building. Hollis. His shout came out as a ragged cough. Hollis, where are you? Nothing. Just the roar of flames and the crack of timber as the house died around him. Valen crawled forward, one hand stretched out in front of him. His palm hit something, a dresser, maybe. He used it to orient himself. Bedrooms usually had closets on the far wall. The heat intensified with every inch. Sweat poured down his face, mixing with soot. His eyes burned. Each breath felt like inhaling fire. Hollis. A sound, faint, to his right. He changed direction, crawling faster now, ignoring the way the floor was starting to feel unstable beneath him. His hand hit a wall. He followed it, searching for, there, a door handle. Valen grabbed it and pulled. The closet door swung open, and inside, huddled in the very back corner, he found them. Hollis Brennan was 7 years old, with tangled blonde hair and eyes wide with terror. She held a 2-year-old toddler June clutched to her chest. Both girls were coughing, faces streaked with tears and soot. In Hollis's free hand, she still gripped her phone. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Valen saw Corey. Saw himself at 16, too late, too slow, too selfish. Not this time. I've got you, he rasped. Both of you. He reached for them, but June whimpered and buried her face in Hollis's shoulder. Hollis's grip tightened, protective even in her fear. The bunny, Hollis choked out. We need June's bunny. Valen's eyes adjusted to the darkness inside the closet. There, a gray stuffed rabbit, half buried under fallen clothes. He grabbed it, shoved it at Hollis. Got it. Now we're leaving. He pulled off his jacket, already hot enough to be uncomfortable, and wrapped it around both girls. The leather would provide at least some protection from the heat and falling debris. Hollis weighed maybe 50 pounds. June couldn't have been more than 25. Together, they were nothing. Valen scooped them both up, one arm under Hollis's back, the other supporting June. The toddler immediately started crying louder. Shh, he whispered, though his voice was nearly gone. I've got you both. He turned to crawl back the way he came, but the smoke had gotten worse. He couldn't see the window anymore, couldn't see anything except orange light filtering through black clouds. A crack split the air sharp and final. Somewhere close, a support beam gave way. The floor shuddered. They were out of time. Valen clutched the girls tighter and moved in what he hoped was the right direction. His free hand hit the dresser again. Window had to be close. Another crack. This one directly overhead. Valen looked up just in time to see a section of ceiling beginning to sag. He lunged forward, covering the girls with his body as debris rained down. Something hot hit his shoulder, a piece of burning drywall. Pain lanced through him, but he didn't stop moving. There, through the smoke, a rectangle of slightly less darkness, the window. Valen half crawled, half dove toward it. His shoulder hit the window frame. Fresh air, actual fresh air, poured in from outside. It tasted like heaven. Take them, he shouted to whoever was listening. Take them. Hands reached in. multiple hands. Someone grabbed Hollis, pulling her through the window. Someone else took June, the toddler's screams now mixed with relief. Valen dragged himself through after them, tumbling onto the grass outside. The night air felt arctic compared to the inferno inside. He gulped it down, coughing violently, his lungs trying to expel the poison he'd just breathed. Around him, neighbors were calling 911, shouting, panicking. Someone wrapped a blanket around Hollis and June. Someone else was asking if he was okay. Valen didn't answer. He was too busy counting. 1, 2, both girls were out, both alive. But there was a third person in that house. He staggered to his feet, legs shaking. His shoulder screamed where the burning debris had hit him, but he ignored it. "Mister?" Hollis's voice, small and terrified. "Mama's still inside." Valen looked at the house. The front entrance was an inferno. The window he'd just used was starting to spew more flames as fire found the fresh oxygen. The roof was sagging visibly now, ready to collapse. Emergency vehicles were arriving. He could see the flashing lights at the end of the street. Firefighters would be here in seconds. They had equipment, training, backup. They also had protocols. Protocols that said you don't enter a structure this compromised. Protocols that said some risks aren't worth taking. Valen wasn't bound by protocols. He'd made a promise 22 years ago, and tonight he was keeping it. Without a word, he turned and ran back toward the burning house. The shouts from the neighbors blurred into background noise as Valen sprinted toward the front of the house. The window route was cut off now. Flames had fully claimed that bedroom. The front door was the only option, the only suicide option. The heat radiating from the doorway was intense enough to singe the hair on his arms. The door itself had burned away, leaving a gaping rectangular mouth that breathed fire and smoke in equal measure. Inside, he could see the living room or what remained of it. Furniture reduced to burning skeletons, walls blackened and crumbling. Ceiling beams visible through holes in the plaster, glowing red-hot. "Lena!" he shouted into the inferno. "Lena Brennan!" No response except the roar of flames. Valen dropped low again, taking the deepest breath his damaged lungs could manage, and plunged inside. The heat was somehow worse than the bedroom. This was the heart of the fire, where it had started and spread from. The floor was a minefield of burning debris. Valen's boots, heavy leather, thank God, protected his feet, but he could feel the heat through the soles. He needed to move fast. Every second increased the chance of the entire structure coming down on his head. Lena. There, through the smoke. A shape on the floor near what used to be a couch, human-sized. Valen crawled toward it, his lungs already screaming for air. The smoke was thicker down here, paradoxically, the rising heat creating reverse layers. His eyes streamed tears. His throat felt like sandpaper soaked in acid. The shape became a person. A woman, face down, unmoving. She wore pajamas, blue with white stars. One of her arms was stretched out, as if she'd been trying to crawl somewhere before the smoke took her. Valen grabbed her arm, checking for a pulse. There, faint but present. She was alive. He hooked his hands under her armpits and started dragging her backward toward the door. She was dead weight, completely unconscious, which made her heavier than she should have been. Behind him, something massive crashed to the floor. A support beam, maybe. The whole house shuddered. Debris rained from above, and Valen hunched over Lena's body, protecting her from the worst of it. Keep moving. Just keep moving. His lungs were burning worse than his shoulder now. Each breath was agony. His vision was starting to darken at the edges, consciousness beginning to slip. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Smoke inhalation. Take your pick, they both ended the same way. The doorway. There. Just another 10 feet. 5 feet. A crack like a gunshot split the air. Valen looked up just in time to see a ceiling beam directly above them start to give way. He lunged, throwing every ounce of remaining strength into dragging Lena backward. His heels hit the threshold. He fell backward, tumbling out onto the front lawn, pulling Lena with him. The beam crashed down exactly where they'd been 2 seconds earlier. Hands grabbed him immediately. Firefighters finally arrived. Someone pulled Lena away from him, started administering oxygen. Someone else was trying to give him a mask, but Valen pushed it away, crawling toward where they'd taken the girls. Hollis and June sat wrapped in emergency blankets, surrounded by paramedics. Hollis's eyes found his across the chaos, and something passed between them, understanding, relief, gratitude. Then her small voice cut through everything else. You came. You really came. Valen nodded, unable to speak past the damage in his throat. Yeah, kid, this time, I came. The paramedics finally forced an oxygen mask on Valen, and he was too exhausted to fight them anymore. He sat on the back bumper of an ambulance, watching firefighters battle the remains of the blaze. The house was a lost cause, they were just preventing spread to neighboring properties now. Lena Brennan had been rushed to the hospital, unconscious but stable. The paramedics said she'd live. Smoke inhalation, possible minor burns, but she'd live. Hollis and June were being loaded into a second ambulance for observation. Hollis still clutched that gray bunny like a lifeline. She kept looking back at Valen, as if afraid he'd disappear if she stopped watching. Sir, a police officer approached young guy, maybe late 20s. I need to ask you some questions about. Not the father, Valen rasped through the oxygen mask. The father did this. The officer's expression hardened. Did what, exactly? Set the fire, check the point of origin, check for accelerants, and when you find Kurt Brennan, you'll find your arsonist. How do you know? The girl texted me, said her father said it, and ran. The officer pulled out a notepad. And you are? Someone who answered a wrong number. Before the officer could press further, a commotion erupted at the police perimeter, shouting, someone trying to push through. That's my house, those are my kids, let me through. Kurt Brennan had returned. He was exactly what Valen expected, mid-30s, unshaven, reeking of alcohol even from 20 feet away. His clothes showed no signs of smoke or flame, he'd been long gone when the fire really took hold. Sir, you need to stay back. Those are my children. Kurt's voice was slurred, aggressive. Where are they? Where's Lena? The police tried to hold him back, but Kurt pushed through, stumbling toward the ambulance where Hollis and June sat. Hollis's eyes went wide with terror. Valen was on his feet before he'd made the conscious decision to move. He intercepted Kurt 5 feet from the ambulance, stepping directly into his path. Up close, Valen could see the broken blood vessels in Kurt's nose, the tremor in his hands, the complete absence of remorse in his eyes. You need to stop, Valen said quietly. Who the hell are you? Kurt tried to sidestep him. Get out of my way. Valen didn't move. I said, stop. Something in his voice, something cold and final, made Kurt pause. The drunk man's eyes focused, really seeing Valen for the first time. Seeing the soot-covered enforcer with burns on his shoulder and murder in his eyes. I know what you did, Valen continued, voice barely above a whisper. I know you set that fire. I know you were hoping they'd all burn. That's insane. It was an accident. I was... Shut up. The 2 words carried absolute authority. I'm only going to say this once, so listen carefully. You're going to walk over to those police officers. You're going to confess. And then you're going to disappear from these girls' lives forever. Kurt's face flushed red. You can't tell me what to do with my own. Valen stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Kurt could hear. Yes, I can. Because if you don't do exactly what I just said, if you ever come near this family again, if you even think about contacting them, I will find you. And when I do, what happened tonight, he gestured to the burning house, will look like a pleasant memory compared to what comes next. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I'm part of the Iron Serpent's MC. You know that name? Valen watched recognition dawn in Kurt's eyes. Good. So you know we don't make threats, we make guarantees. You have exactly 10 seconds to walk to those officers and confess, or you become our newest long-term project. Kurt's face went pale. His alcohol-fueled courage evaporated. 1. Valen counted. Kurt's eyes darted to the police. Then back to Valen. 2. You're insane. 3. Kurt Brennan broke. He turned and stumbled toward the officers, hands raised. I need to confess. The fire. I started it. I'm confessing. Valen watched the police take him into custody, watched them put handcuffs on wrists that should have been burned, watched them read him his rights. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. The hospital was quiet at 3 a.m. Valen sat in the pediatric ward's waiting room, his shoulder properly bandaged now, his lungs somewhat clearer after hours of oxygen therapy. The doctor had wanted to admit him overnight, but Valen refused. He was waiting for Hollis. The girls had been cleared minor smoke inhalation, nothing permanent. June was already asleep in a temporary foster placement arranged by Child Services, but Hollis had asked to see the man on the motorcycle before they took her to join her sister. A nurse approached. She's asking for you. Valen followed her down the sterile hallway to a private room. Hollis sat in the hospital bed, looking impossibly small in a gown too large for her frame. Someone had cleaned the soot from her face, revealing a spray of freckles across her nose. Hi, she said softly. Hi. The doctor said Mama's going to be okay. That's good. Hollis picked at the edge of her blanket. Why did you come? You didn't know us. Valen sat in the chair beside her bed, the same kind of chair he'd sat in 22 years ago while watching Corey die. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, someone I loved once made me promise to always answer when someone was scared and needed help. Tonight, I kept that promise. Who? My little brother. His name was Corey. Where is he now? He died, a long time ago, in a fire. Hollis's eyes widened. Like us? Like you. Except, Valen's voice caught. Except I was supposed to be there, and I wasn't. So he didn't make it. But we did. Yeah. You did. Hollis reached out and took his hand. Her palm was so small it almost disappeared in his scarred, calloused fingers. Thank you for keeping your promise, she whispered. Something in Valen's chest, something that had been broken for 22 years, shifted. Not healed. Not yet, but maybe starting to. You're welcome, kid. 6 months later. The house was modest, a 2-bedroom in a quiet suburb an hour outside the city. White picket fence. Small yard. The kind of place where kids rode bikes in the street and neighbors knew each other's names. Valen pulled up on his Harley, the engine's roar shattering the peaceful Saturday morning. Before he'd even killed the engine, the front door burst open. Uncle V. Hollis ran down the driveway, all grins and excitement. She'd grown in 6 months taller, healthier, eyes no longer haunted by what she'd survived. Valen dismounted and caught her in a hug. Hey, troublemaker. I got an A on my math test. Of course you did. You're brilliant. And June said her first full sentence yesterday. She said, I love you, Holly. That's great. Lena appeared in the doorway, June on her hip. The mother had recovered well, though Valen knew the scars, both physical and emotional, would take years to fully fade. She'd divorced Kurt from prison, gained full custody, and accepted the Serpent's help relocating to a new city with new identities. Coffee's on, Lena called. You staying for breakfast? Wouldn't miss it. As they walked toward the house, Hollis slipped her hand into Valen's. Uncle V? Can you teach me to ride a motorcycle when I'm older? Your mom would kill me. But can you? Valen looked down at this kid who'd accidentally texted a stranger and saved his life in the process. This kid who'd reminded him that promises matter, that caring isn't weakness, that sometimes the thing you're running from is the thing you need most. Yeah, he said softly. Yeah, I can teach you. They reached the front door, and Valen paused, looking back at his bike gleaming in the driveway. For 15 years, it had been the only thing he loved, the only thing he trusted. But standing here, about to walk into a house filled with laughter and pancakes and a family he'd saved and who'd saved him right back, Valen realized something. He'd finally answered the call, kept the promise, honored Corey's memory not by running from every human connection, but by running toward the one that mattered most. Uncle V? Hollis tugged his hand. You coming? Valen Cross smiled, really smiled for the first time in 22 years. Yeah, kid, I'm coming. He stepped inside, leaving the door open behind him, letting the light pour out into a world that suddenly seemed a little less dark. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that compassion can come from the most unexpected places, and that a single brave moment can change a life forever. By supporting this channel, you help spread awareness, hope, and the power of human kindness. Thank you for being part of this community.